Mendelian genetics was named for our dear friend Gregor Mendel. And he's the one who told us that genes have versions that we call alleles. And any gene only has two versions. So, in other words, as an example, this whole height gene. So height is a gene, tall is one allele, short is another. Here I am clearly referring to our friends the pea plants. And he said one of these is dominant to another. So he's the guy we get to thank for this whole dominant versus recessive thing. Unfortunately, though, real life does not work like that. The vast majority of human traits are what we call non-Mendelian. These non-Mendelian traits have a couple of ways of being non-Mendelian. The first thing that happens there's more than two alleles. There are more than two alleles. So if we think about things like, oh, I don't know, hair color or eye color.
Green.
Hair color and eye color, there are obviously way more than two choices. Tons more than two choices. So there are more than two potential alleles here. Same thing for eye color. Then we think about things like height. Height in humans, not only are there more than two alleles, so there's more than two versions of that gene you can inherit, but there's also an environmental factor. Your diet as you're growing affects your height. That's non-Mendelian. Poor Gregor Mendel, he never considered the fact that environment can influence gene expression. So there's more than two alleles, and sometimes isn't dominant to another. Sometimes there's not a recessive. So when there's not a dominant and there's not a recessive, sometimes if you have two different alleles, we see both of them expressed instead of just one. That's weird, but it happens. Gregor Mendel wouldn't have had any way to explain these things or any way to make a Punnett square for them. But one of the most common human traits that is discussed is a non-Mendelian trait. And I want to make sure you guys understand it before you leave here, because it kind of makes a difference for, well, your futures. Human blood types. There are four potential human blood types: A, B, AB, or O. And what most people fail to understand about these blood types is exactly what that means. So I'll describe what your blood cells look like to you. Your red blood cells look like a donut. And it looks like, not like one of those ones with the holes in the middle, but like a jelly donut that you indent the top and the bottom. Some of you may be more familiar with the shape of like a sweet tart or a Smartie. That's about the shape of your red blood cells. Except they're cells. And remember when we covered the cell membrane, we talked about how there are proteins embedded on the surface of the cell. We called them peripheral proteins. And those peripheral proteins all served different kinds of jobs. On the surface of your red blood cells, there are peripheral proteins called A, B, well, those are your choices. You get an A or you get a B. Those peripheral proteins allow your body to identify your own blood. So when one of your blood cells is floating by another blood cell and it's like, hey, we clearly belong to the same person, we have the same thing on our surface, and you proceed on normally. When your blood is floating around your body and it sees something that does not have that same protein on the surface, it recognizes it as a foreign invader, it inspires an immune response, and it attacks it to kill it. That's how your body works. You can see then where these things on the surface are kind of a big deal. Like, those are the things that keep you healthy. I don't know about you guys, I'm not a super huge fan of getting sick. We rely on this response to prevent us from getting sick. The difference between type AB, and O blood are the shapes of the proteins that the body makes to put on the surface. Type A blood is going to look like a blood cell, and it's going to have one shape of protein stuck to it. We'll just affectionately call that shape type A. And type B blood is going to have another shaped protein on the surface. It's a different shape. And type AB blood, weirdly enough, is going to have both the type A protein and the type B protein. And our friends who are type O, they don't have any of these proteins on their surface.
Which one's like the most common type?
Blood type depends on race and ethnicity for which is most common in a population. I do believe in the population of the United States, type O is most common. But it depends on nation of origin of the family, as well as region within the United States. Now, I point all of this out knowing, yep, question?
What about like the positive and the negative?
So there's another part that we say A positive, A negative, O positive, O negative, right? The positive and negative refers to a second other kind of protein. This second other kind of protein, we call it the Rh factor. Rh factor is short for rhesus factor. We named it for the rhesus monkey because that's where we saw it first. And if you produce this protein and it sticks out on the surface of your cell, you're positive. And if you don't, you're negative. That's really simple. It's a simple inheritance. It's Mendelian. So either you have it or you don't. Having it's dominant, not having it is recessive. That's how we inherit that. But we don't look at it at the same time that we look at this when we make Punnett squares, because that'll end up being one of those crazy Punnett squares of 16. Let's just keep it simple for the non-Mendelian stuff at first. What's up? You good?
Yeah, we're fine, I think.
Okay.
I just want to know why somebody wants what they want.
Life story.
So why can O be the universal donor?
So, in 2 years, when you are finally old enough to donate blood, and of course all of you, my little bleeding hearts who want to change the world, you're going to, sign up to donate blood because it'll get you out of one of your classes, and if you pass out, it'll get you out of 2. Oh, that's not why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want to help people, right? Yeah, of course. And you get sweats. You get to wear sweats to school. So, the reason the Red Cross comes here to take blood from people, the first time that you give them your information, guess what, friends? If you are type O, the Red Cross will follow up and call you more often to schedule appointments to get you to donate more frequently. They need your blood. They need everybody's blood. But they really, really like to bleed type O's. Except my dad. I'll explain that later. And the reason for that is, remember what I said about immune responses, about how your body recognizes a foreign invader. Yeah. Without a protein on its surface, if type O gets put into anyone, their body will not recognize it as a foreign invader. Not going to attack it. There's nothing on the surface to say, hey, I don't belong here. So it just flies under the radar so the person can then produce enough of their own blood through the healing process. So type O can go into any one of these people. And if you're type AB, you're super lucky. If O is what we call the universal donor, AB is the universal recipient, and here's why. They can get type O blood, their body recognizes it, and is like, oh sure, welcome, hey, have fun. Float through my veins and arteries, not a big deal. AB blood, they can get it, life is good. They can receive their own type. B, that's not a foreign invader. The host has it. A, still not a foreign invader. The host has that shaped protein too. AB is an infrequent blood type, but they are the universal recipient, so they can get blood from anybody.
Okay, I actually have to interrupt for a moment.
Does he really need?
Yep.
Do the different proteins have different functions or reactions?
Nope. Just labels. Really fancy hello, my name is labels. I mean, let's be honest. Some of you, if I gave you a label that said hello, my name is, you just write your name on it. Others of you would write your name and like draw some hearts on there. Some people like the fancy one. This makes the difference between who the universal donors and the universal recipients are. It explains why the Red Cross is desperate for our type O friends. Now, not all of our type O friends. The reason for not all of our type O friends, well, people like my dad, type O Bob. He is a really slow bleeder. To get the full pint they need, it takes about 2 hours. They could get, he would get out of a lot. Actually, they asked him to please stop donating blood. Last time he tried to give blood, he's like, but I'm type O, you need me. And they're like, it takes too long. We could get through 4 other donors in the amount of time it takes to take your blood. So they have turned him away. As opposed to me, I go in, but I'm not all that helpful. I'm type A. I go in, ask for the biggest needle possible. I'm like, just get it out. And 6 minutes later, we're done, and I'm on my way, having my cookies, going home. Life is good. What? Not if you properly hydrated and snacked properly. If you didn't hydrate properly and they take your blood, and P.S., don't donate blood in your sports season. Your coach isn't going to be happy. Because you need that blood that they take to carry oxygen throughout your body. And if you try to perform your sport, especially something like cross country and track and field, any endurance sport, you're going to be slow, you're going to be sluggish, you're going to be really bad.
I think a couple of our guys did that to get out of practice this year.
Oh, see, it works, doesn't it? Give blood to get out of practice. That's what I never understood. Why do you guys try and get out of practice? Didn't you voluntarily sign up for that sport?
Yeah, no, but the games are like...
You can't play in the game unless you practice. Nobody wants the kid who sucks on their team.
Yeah, make you learn to run though. AJ, did you see us? Drills.
Just saying. So this is the phenotype, right? There are 4 possible phenotypes for your blood. Being 4 different possible phenotypes for blood, that means there must be multiple alleles. There must be more than 2 choices, and there are. The genes that control what's on the surface of your blood look like this. If you are type A, you have an IA gene. Well, you have 1 or 2 IA genes. And if you are type B, you have IB. If you are type O, you are recessive. A and B are what we call codominant. So one's not dominant to another. Type O, though, poor guy. If you are type O, you have 2 lowercase i's as your genotype. We haven't done AB yet. A and B are codominant, so that means that if you have a copy of an A and a copy of a B, you express both of them. That's how our friends who are type AB blood have both proteins. They got one copy of the A protein, one copy of the B protein, and their body uses both of them. Our friends who are type A or type B, they have two choices here. They could either be homozygous or heterozygous.
What would happen if you gave someone with type A blood, like type B blood?
You will kill them. Yep. Which is actually the opposite of what you're usually trying to do when you give them blood. Right? I mean, so some of you who don't know your blood type are now like, but I don't know what kind of blood type I am. Don't worry, if you are in any kind of great trauma, when you get to the hospital, if you are in need of a transfusion, they will test your blood type. Even if you say you know what it is, they're going to double check. Why? Because if they make a mistake, it'll kill you. That's their liability. And hospitals really hate paying patients because they made mistakes. They don't like to do that too often.
Can O only take O?
O can only take O. So O, while they are fabulously generous individuals, also get hosed if they are in some kind of trauma and need blood.
Didn't you say that O was the most common? How is that the most common?
Because of the fact that we have it in combination with our ABs. So our ABs can carry that allele and produce offspring who are type O. So that type O is the only one that can come from somebody who's not type O, if that makes sense.
So does that mean AB type blood can only give to AB type blood?
Yep. They're pretty much useless. We love you anyway, type ABs. But you're not really going to save the planet. Some people, before they go in for surgery, will just donate their own blood so they have it at the hospital in case of emergency. It's not uncommon. Why trust other people's microbiota when you can just have your own? Or if you're like my sister, when you go in, you make your sisters go bleed into a bag for you instead. Ah, love. So on October 4th, 1975, my family of origin was founded. Gail and Bob. Gail, my mother, is type A. And Bob, my father, we've already discussed, universal donor, but they really hate him, type O. So they were married October 4th, 1975, and on February 13th of 1979, they brought a baby girl into this world. And she was type A. And then they brought another baby girl into the world who was also type A. And then they brought another baby girl into the world who was also type A. What are the genotypes that my parents have? Based on what you have in front of you, what are my parental genotypes? Bob's a gimme.
Well, Bob is obviously homologous. Since we only have 2 kids, Gail could be homologous or heterozygous.
So my mom is IA question mark, right? She's IA question mark because we don't know what her other one is. But wouldn't it be oh so tempting to say that Gail is likely a homozygote? Don't you want to say it? You know you want to. I mean, 100% of her offspring are type A. There's not a single type O child in there. wouldn't it statistically be unlikely to have that many type A's without a type O if she weren't a homozygote? You're looking at me like you don't want to trust me. You're looking at me like, don't trust her. Don't follow her down that road. Good, you shouldn't. No, we can't tell. We have no idea. Not a clue. The only way we're going to know is if in October I deliver a baby that's type O. Then we'll know. How many of you are like, yeah, I'll stick around until October for that? I'll let you guys know. I'll send an email. Be like, hey, guess what? It's type O. Then we'll know. And you won't have to worry about it anymore. Now you're going to lose sleep. So the reason that you don't want to believe that is precisely this reason right here. Same family. You're about to learn something else earth-shattering about my parents other than their blood types. Wait for it. Wait for it. My mom's a girl. Whoa, mine's blown. And Fatty 2x4. He's a boy. I know.
What is this?
I know. But here's the weird thing. These two people, they made 3 kids. They stopped after 3 because why go any further when you got it? Really? Yeah?
I have 4. My parents have 4.
Why would my parents have another one after they had me?
But I told my parents, why would you have 4 kids? And then I realized I was the youngest, so.
Good job. Good job on that one. Also earth-shattering, my sister Sarah is a girl. My sister Sue is a girl. And I am, in fact, a girl. If I were to use that same logic that we had earlier to say, well, you have 3 kids who are all girls, so clearly the only possible available allele option here is X's. Then what would that make poor Bob? Yeah, my dad would be wholeheartedly offended if he found out my entire 7th hour just called him a girl. But based on the same logic, if you had said it is likely Gail is homozygous IA, then it is likely Bob is XX. That is improbable. Actually, that is impossible.
What, Kim? What did you say?
Looking at
Yeah.
same family. Would you like to join him? Oh, okay. Just checking. Next time you take classroom management classes, let me know. Excellent. Oh man, sometimes I wonder what's gonna happen when you youths leave me. It is gonna be a lot of detention. I'm cute and cuddly compared to what comes after this. I'm just saying. I know. Some of you just realized you better start praying to all that's holy. The hospital made a huge mistake. Somebody's going to get fired for this one. Three sets of parents came to deliver babies at the same time. But the nurses, they were working a double shift and they made a horrible mistake. They've mixed up the babies. But they don't want to get sued because that'll cost them their jobs. So they're going to try and use the kids' blood types and the parents' blood types to figure out what child belongs to what parents. Figure out which children could belong to which parents. Recessive. So if you are type O,